Come, sit with me. The air is warm and heavy with the scent of dust and baking bread. Can you hear that? The gentle thump-thump of the loom ... That is the rhythm of our days. My name is not important. It is one of many whispered in the courtyards of Nineveh. But my story, your story for this evening, is woven from the threads of this city, a place of gods, kings, and quiet secrets. Just listen. Beyond the sound of the shuttle, you can sometimes hear the roar of the king's lions. One sound is the sound of our life, the other is the sound of our world. Your hands know the work without your mind needing to command them. They move in a dance they have practiced for 1,000 mornings, just like this one. Your fingers deftly separate the warp threads, the vertical sole of the cloth, creating a small, fleeting tunnel of space. Into this space, the shuttle, a smooth piece of polished riverwood, glides with a soft shush. It carries the weft, a thread of deep matter red, like the inside of a pomegranate. You pull the beater bar towards you, and with a satisfying, solid thump, the new thread is pressed tightly against the one before it. A new line of color is born, a permanent part of the growing pattern. The loom itself is a simple, beautiful thing. 2 upright wooden posts lean against the sun-warmed clay wall of your family's courtyard. The warp threads are held taut not by a heavy roller, but by dozens of small, fist-sized clay weights, each one molded and fired by your own hands. They sway almost imperceptibly with each movement, a quiet pendulum marking the passage of time. The sun, climbing high over the eastern wall of the city, casts a sharp rectangle of light onto the ground. And you sit just at its edge, feeling its warmth on your shoulders. The lanolin scent of the wool itself, clean and earthy, rises to meet you. It's a smell of security, of purpose. Your world is measured in these small sensory moments. The slight roughness of the undyed wool against your fingertips. The surprisingly cool, smooth feel of the finished cloth now draping over your lap. The pattern you are weaving is a familiar one, a border of interlocking diamonds, a design your mother taught you, and her mother taught her. It is a piece of your family, made solid in thread. It speaks of home, of continuity, of lives that are not carved into stone palace walls, but are stitched into the very fabric of our city. This cloth might be destined for a dowry chest, or to be traded in the market for a sack of barley, or perhaps to become a tunic for your brother. Its purpose is tangible, close enough to touch. From over the wall of your compound you hear the sounds of your neighbors. A baby crying, then the soft, shushing song of its mother. The rhythmic grinding of grain on a stone quern. The sharp, excited chatter of children chasing a stray dog down the narrow alleyway. These are the sounds of life, as rhythmic and predictable as your loom. They are the threads that weave the community together. A fabric of shared experience as real as the one taking shape beneath your hands. It is a world that feels whole, contained, and understandable. It is a world of peace, earned through the daily labor of ordinary people, and then it comes. It is a sound so profound it seems to make the very air vibrate, a deep, guttural roar that is less an expression of anger and more one of immense, primal sorrow. It is not the sound of a wild thing, but of a wildness that has been captured and contained. You pause for just a moment, shuttle held midair. The lion. It comes from the direction of the royal gardens, on the other side of the city, where the great king Ashurbanipal keeps the magnificent and terrifying beasts brought to him as tribute from conquered lands. They are living symbols of his power, proof that he is master of all the world, capable of taming even the fiercest of nature's creations. The roar is a reminder, cutting through the gentle domestic sounds, that your small, peaceful courtyard exists inside something vast, powerful, and dangerous. Your world of clay and wool is encircled by a world of bronze and iron. The roar fades, replaced by another sound closer this time. It is the rhythmic, percussive tramp of marching feet on the paved street that runs past your alley. Tramp, tramp, tramp. You don't look up, you don't need to, you know the sight? A patrol of the king's soldiers, their conical helmets gleaming in the sun, their iron-tipped spears held at a perfect, menacing angle. Their scale armor, meticulously crafted, shifts and whispers with a sound like 1,000 tiny snakes. They are the instruments of the power that the lion only symbolizes. They are the men who march to the edges of the earth, who bring back the cedar from Lebanon, the gold from Egypt, and the captives who now serve in the homes of the wealthy. They are the enforcers of the king's peace, a peace that is paid for with bloodshed in lands whose names you only hear in whispers. The sound of their marching recedes, and the quiet of the morning settles back into your courtyard. You take a breath, the scent of bread and dust filling your lungs again, and your hands return to their work. Shush, thump, shush, thump. The rhythm reasserts itself, a quiet act of defiance against the echoes of power. How strange it is, you think, to live these two lives at once. The life of the hands, creating something warm and useful, and the life of the ear, always listening for the sounds of the immense, unknowable empire that holds you in its heart. You are a single thread in its grand, complex design, a pattern far too large to ever see. And so you focus on the threads you can control, the small, beautiful order you can make, right here in the golden light of a Nineveh morning. The piece of cloth you have finished is small, but the dye is true and the weave is tight. It is a gift for the wife of a baker who lives 2 quarters away, a return for a kindness she showed your family during the last dusty weeks of summer. You wrap it carefully in a larger, plain piece of linen, tuck it under your arm, and step out from the relative quiet of your family's compound. The alleyway is a cool, narrow canyon carved between the high, windowless walls of other homes. The sun is a brilliant sliver of white far above, unable to penetrate this deep. Here the world is close and intimate. The air is thick with the smells of life, lentils simmering over a charcoal fire, the sour scent of a goat tethered in a nearby yard, the ever-present smell of dust. You hear the slap-slap of a woman beating a rug on a rooftop, her grunts of effort punctuated by the laughter of children whose voices echo strangely between the clay-brick walls. You murmur a greeting to an old man sitting in his doorway, his face a road map of wrinkles, his eyes milky with age. He nods slowly, his gaze distant, as if watching a city that no longer exists. This is the heart of Nineveh, the honeycomb of private lives, each cell humming with its own quiet rhythm. But then you reach the end of the alley and step onto one of the city's great processional ways, and the world explodes. The street is a wide, sun-drenched river of humanity, paved with stones that have been worn smooth by a century of feet, hooves, and chariot wheels. The sheer noise is the first thing that strikes you, a wave of sound so complex you can't untangle its threads. It is the sound of 1,000 people talking, shouting, laughing, and bargaining. It is the braying of a heavily laden donkey, protesting its burden. It is the bleating of a lamb being led by a farmer, its wool impossibly white against the dusty street. Above it all is a hum, the vibrant, energetic pulse of a great city at the very height of its power. You pull your outer veil slightly more across your face, a gesture of modesty and anonymity, and join the current of people. This is the marketplace, the stomach and soul of Nineveh, and it sprawls in a chaotic, beautiful mess on either side of the grand street. Stalls are crammed together, their awnings of worn goat-hair cloth providing patches of shade. You walk past a spice merchant, a man with a dark, trimmed beard and eyes that seem to see everything. Before him are small mountains of color and scent, the fiery red of ground peppers, the rich yellow of turmeric, the earthy brown of cumin seeds, all piled high in woven baskets. Their combined fragrance is a heady perfume that speaks of distant, sun-scorched lands. Next to him, a potter has his wares spread out on a reed mat. There are simple, practical bowls for everyday use, large jars for storing water or grain, and tiny, delicate pots for holding precious coal to paint a woman's eyes. His hands, caked in dry clay, move with a practiced grace as he arranges his stock. You see people from every walk of life here. A broad-shouldered man, his skin darkened by the sun, haggles over the price of an iron plowshare. His Akkadian is rough, accented by the mountains he calls home. You see a group of women, their laughter like bells, admiring a stall of textiles. There are bolts of sturdy local wool, like the kind you weave, but there are also fabrics you can only dream of touching. One is a linen so fine and white it seems to shimmer, brought all the way from the workshops along the Nile. Its price would feed your family for half a year. The empire's vastness is here, not as a map, but as a living, breathing reality. You smell the sharp, clean scent of cedarwood before you see it, a stack of mighty logs dragged from the high mountains of Lebanon, waiting to become part of a new palace door or a sacred bark for a god. You see a merchant carefully weighing ingots of metal on a bronze scale tin from the far-off lands of Anatolia, which will be mixed with copper from the eastern hills to forge the very weapons that expand the empire's reach. The languages you hear are a testament to that reach. Your own familiar Akkadian is the dominant tongue, but woven through it is the fluid, cursive sound of Aramaic, the language of scribes and traders. You catch harsher, guttural words from a group of captives, their eyes downcast as they follow their master, their faces marked by a sadness that feels out of place amidst the market's vibrancy. It is here you see the city's unspoken lines of power drawn most clearly. A priest from the temple of Nabu, the god of wisdom, glides through the crowd. His long robe is of the finest bleached linen, and he is flanked by 2 young acolytes who clear a path for him. The scent of expensive juniper oil lingers in the air after he passes. The merchants bow their heads, not just in respect for the god he serves, but in recognition of the temple's immense wealth and influence. A short while later, you press yourself against a wall to make way for a chariot, a magnificent creation of wood and bronze, pulled by 2 high-stepping horses. The man holding the reins is a military commander, his beard oiled and square-cut in the Assyrian style. His scale armor is inlaid with intricate patterns, and a long iron sword is sheathed at his hip. He doesn't even seem to see the crowd he parts. His gaze is fixed ahead on the ziggurat that pierces the sky, and you see it too. Rising above the flat roofs and the chaotic stalls, the great temple tower stands as a man-made mountain, a staircase for the gods to descend to earth. It is a constant presence, a reminder that for all the city's human energy, it is the gods who are truly in charge. Then you pass a man whose work is as vital as any priestess or soldieress. He is a water carrier, his back bent under the strain of a wooden yoke from which 2 heavy clay jars hang. Sweat traces paths through the dust on his face. His tunic is patched, his feet bare. His entire world is the weight of water and the distance from the river to the homes of those who can afford to pay him. You watch him for a moment, his slow, careful steps a stark contrast to the commander's chariot. His is the quiet labor that allows the city to live. The entire city feels like this a living thing, a complex weave of power and poverty, of faith and commerce, of 100 different lands and peoples all held together inside these colossal walls. As you pass through one of the great city gates, flanked by the stone-carved, winged bulls who have guarded this entrance for generations, you look up at the sheer scale of the baked brick fortifications. They are so high they seem to hold up the sky, a definitive line between the order of Assyria and the chaos beyond. Our city is a world, held within walls of baked brick. But what truly holds us together is not the mortar, but the gods we fear and the faith we share. A force as unseen and as powerful as the wind sweeping down from the northern mountains. As we prepare to step from the noisy street into the quiet reverence of the temple, take a moment to reflect. If you could walk through these ancient streets, what sound or sight would you most want to experience? I love reading your thoughts in the comments as it helps us all build this world together. The baker's wife accepts your woven gift with a smile that warms you more than the afternoon sun. The exchange is complete, a small thread of goodwill stitched into the fabric of your day. As you turn for home, you choose to walk not along the grand, noisy thoroughfare, but through the quieter arteries of the city. Here, the shadows are longer and the air feels different. You can almost feel the spiritual weight of the temples, their ziggurats silent stone giants against the deepening blue of the sky. The gods feel closer here. But the gods you think of first are not the ones who live in those monumental houses of brick. They are the ones who live with you. Back within the familiar walls of your courtyard, the world shrinks to a comfortable, manageable size. The first thing you do, even before drinking a cup of water, is approach the small niche hollowed into the main wall of your home. This is your family's shrine. There is no gold here, no precious lapis lazuli. There are only a few small clay figures molded by your grandmother's hands long ago. Their shapes are simple, barely human, but they are potent with meaning. One is the likeness of your Ilu, your personal family god, a divine guardian whose name is known only to the head of your household. He is your direct link to the spirit world, the one who carries your pleas to the ears of the greater gods. Beside him is a figure of a goddess, her hips wide, a protector of the home and the women within it. You take a single, perfect date from a small bowl you keep for this purpose and place it before them. You pour a little fresh water from your jug into a tiny clay dish, a humble offering of life's most essential gift. You don't speak in the formal, chanted phrases of the temple priests. Your prayer is a quiet whisper, a conversation with the unseen. You ask for your father's health, for your brother's safe return from his trading journey, for strength in your hands to continue your work. It is a moment of profound and personal connection, a quiet reassurance that you are not alone in the vastness of the cosmos. Your faith begins here, in this small, dusty alcove. It is a faith of the home, of the heart. But faith is not just about comfort, it is also about protection. Life is fragile, and the air is thick with unseen dangers, with spirits and demons who desire only to bring misery. Tucked beneath the collar of your tunic, resting against your skin, is your primary shield. It is a small amulet carved from a piece of dark river stone. It is heavy for its size, its surface worn smooth from years of contact. It is the head of a snarling, monstrous creature with the face of a lion, the ears of a dog, and a terrifying, gaping maw. This is Pazuzu, king of the wind demons. It seems a strange thing to wear the image of a demon to protect yourself. But this is the nature of the world. A great evil is needed to fight a greater one. And Pazuzu is the sworn enemy of the one you fear most, the demoness Lamashtu. You have seen Lamashtu's work. You have heard the wails of a neighbor whose newborn child, healthy at dusk, was cold and still by dawn. Lamashtu is the terror of every woman. She is the shadow that creeps into the birthing room, the fever that takes a child, the hand that snatches life from the cradle. She is a goddess with a lion's head and a donkey's teeth who drinks blood and devours flesh. The fear of her is a cold stone in your belly. And so you wear Pazuzu, you place his image above the door. You trust in his monstrous power to keep her at bay. This is the other side of your faith, a constant, vigilant negotiation with fear, a reliance on powerful magic to guard the precarious flame of life. As evening settles, you climb the steep clay stairs to the flat roof of your house to catch the cooling breeze. From here, the city transforms. It becomes a sea of rooftops, and rising from that sea are the immense, dark shapes of the great temples. Their work is just beginning. You can see the flicker of hundreds of torches in the sacred precincts. Those are the homes of the gods who belong to everyone, the gods of the state. You see the ziggurat of Nabu, the god of scribes and wisdom, and the grand temple of Ishtar, our city's own formidable goddess. And you think of Ashur, the god whose name is the same as our empire? Ashur is the true king of Assyria. He is a god of war, whose symbol is the winged sun disk that adorns the standards of our armies. When our soldiers march, it is Ashur who marches with them. The tribute they bring back from conquered lands is laid at his feet. He is a distant, demanding god, and his pleasure ensures the survival of our entire world. You also think of Ishtar. She is a goddess of dizzying contradictions. She is Ishtar of Nineveh, the goddess of love and passion, the one young women pray to for a good husband. But she is also Ishtar of Arbela, the warrior goddess who revels in the blood of battle. She is both the weaver's gentle hand and the soldier's merciless sword. In her, you see the reflection of your own city, a place of quiet homes and loving families that is also the heart of the most feared military power the world has ever known. These great gods are not approached with whispered prayers in a courtyard. They are served through grand, public spectacle, and their chief servant is the king himself. Last month, during the festival of the new moon, you watched from this same rooftop. You saw the great procession moving through the city, a river of torchlight and sound. You heard the deep chanting of the priests, the music of lyres and drums, a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the city. You saw the king, not in his armor, but in the long ceremonial robes of a high priest, his face solemn as he led the way. He was not just our ruler. He was our mediator, our representative in the court of the gods. His every action had to be perfect, his every prayer precise. It is his piety that guarantees the favor of Ashur, that ensures the rains will come, the crops will grow, and our armies will be victorious. Religion for the king is not just faith. It is a vital tool of statecraft, the spiritual foundation of the empire. As the last light fades, you look from the distant, glowing temples back down into your own dark courtyard. The city's pulse slows. The grand rituals of the state are over for the night. But in your home, and in 1,000 homes just like it, a tiny flame still flickers at a small shrine, a personal beacon against the vast, star-filled dark. You live your life between these two altars, the humble one of your home, and the magnificent, terrifying one of the empire. One is for your heart, the other is for your world, and you need both to survive. The sun has softened now, its light turning from white-hot silver to a warm, dusty gold. You sit with your mother and your younger sister in the courtyard, the day's weaving done, your hands now busy mending a torn tunic. The air is still, and in this quiet moment the conversation drifts to the future, as it often does. Your sister, on the cusp of womanhood, asks about marriage, her voice a mixture of nervous excitement and apprehension. Your mother looks at you, a silent acknowledgement passing between you, a shared understanding of the complex world your sister is about to enter. It is a world not of her own making, a world built upon rules as ancient and unyielding as the foundations of the temples. We do not speak of these rules as laws, not in the way a scribe or a magistrate would. We speak of them as the way things are. They are the truths we are born into. We know that a woman's life is a journey from the house of her father to the house of her husband. You remember when your cousin was betrothed? You did not see her intended husband until the day the final bride price was paid. The arrangement was a careful negotiation between the two fathers, a contract of property and lineage. Your cousin's feelings were a secondary consideration, a gentle stream expected to flow into the great river of family duty. Her value and yours is carefully measured. The fine cloth you spend months weaving, the silver rings your mother gives you from her own dowry, the household pottery, these are not mere gifts, they are your worth made tangible. They are the wealth you bring to a new family, a testament to the status of the one you are leaving. And once you cross your husband's threshold, that wealth, that life belongs to his house. It is a transfer of authority, a simple, profound fact of life. You pray your sister will be given to a kind man, one whose voice is gentle and whose hand is steady. It is the greatest hope a woman can have. And central to this life, to this identity, is the veil. Before you stepped out of the courtyard this morning, your mother adjusted yours, a simple piece of linen that transforms you the moment it is draped over your head. The veil is a complicated thing. It is not for every woman. The law is brutally clear on this. A woman who hides her face will face harsh punishment. An enslaved woman who dares to cover her face will have her ears cut off. The veil is a privilege. It is a sign. It announces to the world that you are a respectable woman, a daughter or wife of a free citizen of Ashur. It is a shield, separating you from the leering gaze of strangers in the market, protecting the honor of your family. But it is also a boundary. It marks you as possessed, as belonging to a man's household. It is a portable wall, a constant, physical reminder of your place. Some days it feels like a comforting embrace, a shield against the world's harshness. On other days, especially when the summer heat is unforgiving, it feels heavy, a weight of expectation that you must carry everywhere you go. The honor it protects is a fragile, dangerous thing. In the hushed tones of evening, women share stories, cautionary tales that are whispered, never shouted. You remember hearing the older women speak of a case in a neighboring quarter. A wife was accused of lying with another man. Your blood runs cold even thinking of it, not just for the sin, but for the chilling calculus of the law that follows. The old tablets of the kings, whose words still echo in the judgments of the city elders, decree a strange and terrible symmetry. The wronged husband is given the power of life and death, but it is a shared fate. If he decrees the adulterer should be put to death, he must, by law, put his wife to death as well. If he chooses a lesser punishment, to cut off the man's nose or have him beaten, he must inflict the very same punishment upon his wife. His only other choice is mercy to pardon the man, and in doing so, pardon her completely. It is a law that reveals a stark truth. The crime is not seen as a betrayal of love, but as a theft of property. The wife's body is part of her husband's household, and her transgression is a stain upon his honor. The law is not about her, but about him. This is why a woman's greatest purpose, her greatest security, lies in childbirth. A wife who does not bear children, especially sons, lives a precarious existence. A son is an heir. He will carry on the family name, tend to the ancestral spirits, and inherit the property. A daughter is valuable, but a son is essential. The hope for a child is a constant prayer on your lips. The fear of barrenness is a shadow that follows every young wife, and the terror of childbirth itself is a battle every woman must face. This is when the world of men and their laws fades away, and the world of women becomes everything. When your cousin gave birth last spring, the courtyard was sealed off. Her husband was not permitted. It was a sacred female space. Her mother, her aunts, you, and the other women of the family gathered. We became a fortress of shared experience. We held her hands, wiped her brow with cool water, and chanted the ancient prayers to ward off the demoness Lamishtu. The midwife, a woman whose hands had welcomed 100 souls into the world, was our general in this fight. The air was thick with fear, pain, and a powerful, fierce love. When the baby finally cried a healthy boy, the wave of relief was so profound it left you breathless. In that moment, your cousin was triumphant. She had fulfilled her duty, overcome the danger, and secured her place in her new family forever. She had forged a new life. And so you find your own power not in defiance of these rules, but in the spaces between them. You find it here, in the quiet solidarity of the courtyard, sharing stories and sorrows with your mother and sister. You find it in the bonds forged in the crucible of childbirth, a sisterhood of resilience that men can never truly understand, and you find it in your work. You return your focus to the tunic in your lap, your needle pulling the thread in a neat, strong stitch. The skill in your hands is yours alone. The knowledge of the loom, the dyes, the patterns, this is your inheritance, passed from woman to woman. The cloth you create has value. It contributes to your family's well-being. It will form a part of your sister's dowry. It is a tangible product of your strength and patience. This labor gives you a quiet dignity, a measure of influence within the rigid frame of your life. You live within the walls of your father's house, and will one day live within the walls of your husband's. But your inner world, your worth, your connections to the women around you, that is a territory you cultivate and defend with a quiet, enduring strength. It is how you survive. It is how you live. The rhythm of your days, governed by the sun and the loom, is a peaceful one. But it is a peace that is fragile, a quiet pond whose surface is constantly rippled by the actions of the king. The empire is a vast, hungry machine, and its hunger is for tribute, for territory, and for men. You feel its pull most keenly in the spring, when the last of the winter rains have softened the earth and the campaigning season begins. This is the season of departures. You see it in the eyes of your neighbors. The son of the potter, a boy you have known your entire life, his hands always dusted with clay, is conscripted. One day he is shaping bowls in his father's workshop. The next he is handed a spear and a shield, his youthful face set in a mask of grim determination. His mother stands in her doorway, her face a study in forced composure, but her hands twist the fabric of her robe into knots. She does not weep where others can see. That is not our way. But the entire courtyard feels the hollow space he leaves behind. These departures are a tithe paid in flesh and blood, a sacrifice made not to the gods in the temples, but to the God on earth, the King, whose will keeps the world in order. We are told that these wars are necessary. They are to punish rebellious vassals, to secure the borders, to ensure the favor of the god Ashur, and so the young men march away, columns of them pouring out of the city gates. Their destination a name that means nothing to you, a place in Elam, a city in the lands of the Medes. All you know is that it is far away, and that some will not return. Months later you hear the sound. It begins as a low rumble, a vibration you feel in the solace of your feet before you can place it. Then the sound grows, a wave of horns and drums and the roar of a crowd. It is the sound of victory. The army is returning. You climb to the rooftop, joining the rest of the city in watching the spectacle. It is a river of power flowing back into its source. At the head of the procession are the commanders in their chariots, their armor gleaming, their faces impassive. Behind them come the soldiers, the men who survived. They march with a weary pride, their spears now decorated with captured enemy standards. You scan their faces, looking for the potter's son, your heart a tight knot in your chest. And then you see the true price of this victory. Behind the soldiers comes the tribute. Carts groan under the weight of gold and silver objects, of fine furniture carved from exotic woods, of bolts of cloth dyed in colors you have never seen. Herds of livestock cattle, sheep, and strange, long-necked camels are driven through the streets. But this is not what holds your gaze, it is the people. Long lines of them, their hands bound, their heads bowed. Men, women, and children, their clothes tattered, their faces etched with a profound and bottomless despair. They are the people of the conquered city. They walk past the magnificent reliefs on the palace walls that depict this very scene Assyrian soldiers leading away captives. They have become a part of the story our empire tells about itself. These people do not simply disappear. They are absorbed into the city's bloodstream. The men are put to work on the king's great building projects, their skilled hands now serving the empire that destroyed their homes. The women and children are taken into the households of the wealthy as servants, their language a new and mournful sound in the courtyards of Nineveh. You see them in the market, their eyes carrying a permanent shadow. They learn our language, adopt our customs, but a part of them will always remain in the ghost of their former lives. Their sorrow becomes another thread in the city's complex emotional tapestry. Their presence is a constant, living reminder of the empire's might and its terrible cost. But the king's power is not just measured in spears and tribute. It is measured in something else, something quieter but just as profound. Sometimes, when you walk near the royal quarter, you see scribes moving with a sense of urgent purpose. They carry not weapons, but leather satchels filled with clay tablets. They are the soldiers of the king's other army, the one he has assembled to conquer the world of the mind. Our king, Ashurbanipal, is unlike any before him. He is a warrior, yes, but he is also a scholar. He can read the ancient, difficult texts that even most priests cannot. And he has a hunger not just for land, but for knowledge. He has sent his agents to every corner of the known world, to the ancient cities of Babylon and Uruk, with a royal decree. Find and copy every tablet of importance. Every story, every myth, every medical text, every list of omens, every astronomical observation, every magical incantation. They are all to be brought here, to Nineveh, to be housed in a great library within his palace. To you, this library is a place of myth. You cannot enter it. You cannot read the wedge-shaped signs that cover the tablets, but you can imagine it. A house of clay filled with silent voices from across the centuries. A room where the story of the great flood sits beside a tablet that predicts the path of the stars. A place where the wisdom of long-dead Babylonian kings is stored next to a spell to cure a headache. It is a breathtaking thought. The king is gathering not just the world's wealth, but its memory. He is making Nineveh the mind of the empire, not just its heart. This power feels different from the power of his armies. The army's power is loud, brutal, and temporary. It breaks cities and shatters lives. But the power of the library is quiet, subtle, and eternal. It is the power to know everything, to hold all of history in your hands. It is a power that feels even more absolute, more divine, than the ability to conquer a city. The king's shadow falls over your life in two ways: the shadow of the sword, which brings fear and sorrow, and the shadow of the stylus, which brings a sense of awe and wonder at a power so vast it seeks to own not just the world, but all of its stories too. The king collects stories on clay, just as he collects tribute from 100 lands. But the story of our empire isn't just written in the palaces. It is grown in the soil, in the barley and wheat that feed our soldiers and our cities. Let us leave the shadow of the palace and journey, just for a while, to the green fields that are the true heart of Ashur's kingdom. The idea that a king has power came not just from swords, but from knowledge is a powerful one. What do you think this tells us about the Assyrians? If you're enjoying this journey, perhaps consider subscribing to continue exploring these forgotten worlds with us. The journey begins before the sun has fully risen, while Nineveh is still a city of gray shadows and sleeping sounds. You leave not with the fanfare of a returning army, but with the quiet purpose of a family visit. Your uncle, who still farms the land of his father, is waiting for you with a small cart just outside the Shemesh gate. As you pass through the colossal gateway, leaving the watchful eyes of the stone Lamassu behind, a sense of release washes over you. The air itself begins to change. The dense, close smell of a million people living together gives way to something cleaner, wider, the scent of damp earth and open sky. The overwhelming symphony of the city fades with each turn of the cart's wheels, replaced by a simpler tune, the rhythmic clopping of the donkey's hooves, the gentle creak of the axle, and the rising chorus of morning birds. For hours you travel, following the life-giving artery of the Tigris River. The world expands into a vast, flat plain, punctuated by clusters of date palms. The sky is immense, a brilliant blue bowl stretching from one horizon to the other. Here you feel small not because you are lost in a crowd, but because you are a tiny speck in the immensity of the land itself. When you finally arrive at your uncle's village, it feels like stepping into a different chapter of the same story. There are no great walls here, no paved processional ways. Houses are built not of fired brick, but of the earth itself, a mixture of mud and straw that seems to grow right out of the soil. They are clustered loosely, separated by pens for livestock and small gardens. The loudest sound is the lowing of an ox. The peace is so profound it feels like a physical presence. Your cousins run to greet you, their bare feet kicking up dust. Their faces are browned by the sun, their hands strong and calloused in a way yours, softened by wool, are not. Your aunt embraces you, her hug smelling of wood smoke and yeast. Their world is governed not by the edicts of the palace, but by the slow, powerful cycles of the seasons. Their questions are not of city politics or the latest news from the frontier, but of the river's height, the threat of locusts, and whether the rains will come at the right time. Your uncle, a man whose silence holds more weight than most men's words, takes you to see the fields. This, he gestures with a sweep of his arm, is the real heart of the empire. It is a stunning sight, a vast, intricate checkerboard of green and gold stretching as far as you can see. It is a landscape shaped by human hands. He shows you the Great Canal, a wide, deep channel dug by the king's engineers generations ago. It is a smaller, man-made river that pulls water from the Tigris and carries it miles inland, a testament to the empire's foresight. But the true genius is in the smaller things. From the main canal, a web of smaller ditches, dug, and maintained by the villagers themselves, spiders out to every single plot of land. Your uncle leads you to a shaduf, a simple, elegant machine for lifting the water. It is a long wooden pole, balanced on a post, with a heavy clump of dried mud on one end and a leather bucket on the other. A young boy, your cousin, moves with a practiced, hypnotic rhythm, pulling the empty bucket down to the ditch, letting the counterweight lift the full bucket of water, swinging it over, and tipping its precious contents onto the thirsty soil. All day, every day, this work goes on. It is the steady, repetitive heartbeat that keeps the land alive. You spend the next days in the fields, for it is the time of the barley harvest. The work begins at dawn and ends at dusk, a communal effort that pulls in everyone. You are given a small, curved sickle of baked clay, its edge surprisingly sharp. You work alongside your cousins and your aunt, moving in a line through the sea of golden grain. The motion is rhythmic. Grasp a handful of stalks, swing the sickle, lay the cut barley down. Your back aches and sweat stings your eyes. The sharp edges of the stalks leave small scratches on your arms, but there is a deep satisfaction in the labor. You are a part of something essential. The women sing as they work, old songs about the gods of the harvest and the heroes of the past, their voices carrying across the fields. You are not just harvesting grain. You are harvesting the life of your people for the coming year. At the end of the week, the threshing is done. and the grain lies in a magnificent golden mountain on the hard-packed earth of the village threshing floor. It is a moment of triumph, of security. But the celebration is short-lived. A new presence arrives in the village. A scribe from the governor's office, accompanied by 2 soldiers leaning on their spears, their bronze helmets seeming impossibly out of place against the rural backdrop. They are the tax collectors. There is no argument, no bargaining. Your uncle stands tall, his face a stony mask of resignation. The scribe directs the measuring. A 10th part for the temple of Ashur, another portion for the king's granaries, another to feed the army. Basket after basket of the best grain, the product of a year of back-breaking labor, is measured out and loaded onto the state's barges waiting at the riverbank. What is left will see the village through the winter, if they are careful. It is the price they pay for the empire's protection, for the canals that water their fields. It is a bitter but necessary transaction. The farmers feed the soldiers who protect them from foreign enemies and who also ensure the taxes are paid. As you prepare to return to Nineveh, you look at the fields with new eyes. You understand now that the glittering power of your city, its towering walls, its magnificent palaces, its library of all the world's knowledge is built upon this. It is built upon the mud of the riverbank, the sweat of the harvest, and the quiet endurance of your uncle and his people. Their story is not carved in stone reliefs, but you have seen it written in the lines on their faces and felt it in the ache of your own muscles. It is the foundation, the silent, fertile ground from which the entire Assyrian world grows. The seasons still turn, the sun still rises over the Zagros mountains, and the rhythm of your loom remains the steady anchor of your days. And yet, something has changed. It is not a sudden crack in the foundation of the world, but a subtle shifting, a quiet loosening of the threads that hold everything together. It is a feeling that you breathe in with the dusty air of the city, a low hum of anxiety that resonates just beneath the surface of daily life. It begins with small things, things you can touch and see. At the market stall where you buy your wool, the merchant, a man whose weary eyes have seen everything, offers you thread dyed with indigo from the coast. But the blue is not as deep and vibrant as it was a few years ago. It is paler, as if washed out. When you ask why, he simply shrugs, his shoulders slumping. He speaks of trouble on the trade routes, of caravans that never arrive. It is the same with the cedarwood you see being unloaded by the river. The logs are smaller now, less majestic than the ones that built the palaces of the old kings. The empire's reach, once so effortless and absolute, now seems strained. Its mighty arms are growing tired. The whispers in the market have changed, too. They are no longer just about prices or local gossip. Now, when men gather in the shade of an awning, their voices are lower, their glances more furtive. You walk past a group of merchants and catch a name on the wind. Babylon. The king's own brother, placed there to rule in his name, has betrayed him. He has declared himself king of Babylonia and has lit a fire of rebellion that our armies are struggling to put out. The word Babylon is spoken with a mixture of anger and fear. It is a wound that never seems to heal. Then there are whispers of Egypt, the land of the great river. The war there is a bleeding sore, swallowing men and gold with no victory in sight. These are not the triumphant tales of the past, of cities conquered in a single season. These are stories of long, grinding campaigns, of an empire stretched as thin and taut as a warp thread on a loom. This distant trouble has a way of finding its way into your home, into your very cooking pot. The price of barley has risen twice since the last harvest. The portion of grain your father brings home from the market is smaller, and you add more water to the stew to make it last. It is a quiet, gnawing worry that settles in your stomach. The city feels more crowded, but not with the wealth of new tribute. It is crowded with uncertainty. You see more soldiers on the streets, but they are not marching in triumphant parades. They patrol in small groups, their eyes scanning the crowds with a weariness that seems to have aged them beyond their years. Some of them are no older than your younger brother. The strength they project feels brittle, like a clay pot with a hairline crack you can't quite see. One evening, you walk along the great wall of the king's palace, the one whose stone panels tell the story of our people. You have known these images your entire life. They are carved with breathtaking skill, the king in his chariot, his arrow flying true into the heart of a leaping lion, soldiers with ladders scaling the walls of an enemy city, long lines of captives bowing before the triumphant Assyrian monarch. These images have always filled you with a sense of awe of belonging to something eternal and invincible. But tonight, in the fading light, they look different. They feel like stories from another time. The confident, muscular kings in the reliefs are Ashurbanipal's father, his grandfather. They belong to a more certain age. The swift victories carved in stone do not match the weary whispers of the endless wars of today. The carvings feel less like a celebration of current reality and more like a nostalgic dream of a past glory. They are a reminder of what we were, not what we are. The stone, once so alive with power, now feels cold, a magnificent tombstone for a golden age that is slipping through your fingers like fine sand. You return to your courtyard, to the familiar comfort of your loom. You pick up the shuttle, its wood worn smooth by your own hands. As you weave, you find yourself thinking of the patterns, the interlocking diamonds as chevrons. They are designs of order, of strength, of a world where everything fits together perfectly. The steady thump-thump of the beater bar is a reassurance, a small act of creating order in a world that feels as if it is slowly beginning to unravel. Each thread you pass is a quiet prayer, a wish that the fabric of your world will hold, even as you feel the distant, inexorable pulling on its fraying edges. And so we must leave her there, in the quiet of her courtyard, with the threads of an uncertain future passing through her hands. The steady, comforting rhythm of her loom begins to fade, and the scent of dust and wood smoke recedes, until her world, so vivid just a moment ago, becomes a silent image from a distant past. The story of her life and the great, complex city she called home seems destined to dissolve, to be buried under the shifting sands of time, as all things eventually are. You might wonder how we could possibly know these secrets. How could we know the texture of her veil, the name of the demon she feared, or the quiet prayer she whispered at her household shrine? How could we feel the weight of the laws that governed her life, or hear the anxious whispers that filled her marketplace? The answer is one of history's most beautiful ironies. We know these things because the Assyrians, in their relentless pursuit of order, wrote everything down. Their world was built on clay. On soft, damp tablets of river clay, they recorded not just the grand conquests of their kings, but the intimate details of existence. They wrote marriage contracts that listed the value of a dowry, medical texts that described treatments for fever, legal codes that laid out the rights of a widow, and personal letters filled with gossip and family news. Every transaction, every omen, every story was pressed into the clay with a reed stylus, creating a library of life itself. In the year 612 BCE, the end came for Nineveh. The great city, the heart of the world, was conquered by its enemies. In their rage, they put the palaces and temples to the torch. The magnificent city burned for days, a funeral pyre for an empire. This should have been the final act, the fire that erased Assyria from memory, but it was not. The inferno that consumed the empire's wooden beams and reed mats also baked the soft clay tablets in their thousands. The flames that meant to destroy instead preserved. They were fired into hard, durable ceramic, turning a library of fragile clay into a permanent archive of stone. The empire turned to dust. The walls crumbled, and the fields returned to wilderness. But the voices, captured in wedge-shaped signs, were only sleeping. They waited for millennia beneath the earth, ready to tell their stories again. And so our time in Nineveh comes to a close. The loom is quiet now. Your story, like millions of others, was buried under layers of earth and time. But it was not lost. It was waiting, preserved in clay, for us to find. Thank you for walking these streets with me tonight. If this journey has sparked your curiosity, please consider sharing it with someone else who might find peace in the past. And let me know what overlooked chapter of history you would like to dream of next. Until then, may your sleep be deep and your dreams be full of wonder.